identity is constructed by the outside. However, we live under the belief that we constructed it ourselves, that we are able to control it. We are interpolated and gender is a part of this. People have issues of identity because the body they are born into becomes a prison. Sex is predetermined for us. Babies aren't given any choice in gender. Gender is a medical construct, used to push our bodies into these binaries. And once the binary genders have been identified, the social expectations for those genders are applied. If you were made a woman at birth, you're expected to fill out everything assigned to womanhood. Like Lambert suggests in the corset design, it has become a tool to do this. You're expected to fit into a corset and reach an ideal. Fashion and design is made to shape our bodies, and lives and restricts our actions. With this notion of the ideal, issues of identity becomes worse. This is present in kids' toy design. The basic use of colour is enough to show how these binaries are enforced. We use clothing to form our identity. We aim to reflect our personality, present what's on the inside to the outside. However, clothing tailors us to certain set identities. We are led to believe that we have the freedom of choice in the clothes that we wear, but there is a limit to what we can actually buy. You can see in clothing stores this segregation of gender, male on one side, female on the other, and you feel wrong and out of place being on the other side.
Okay, so we're basically going to go into general pairs and show like the difference there is between the displays of men and women and how it's really like separated in store. As soon as you walk in, you straight away there's like girls with jeans, very different. Female to men, boys and girls aren't even just separated by racks in here. You actually have to go down to a separate floor to see the men's section.
We aren't only limited by gender, but by wealth, race, and social cliques. We wear what's expected of us, and although we may feel like ourselves in our clothes, this is still an issue of identity, as clothing and design is actually interpolated for us. As Preciado makes clear in Sex, Drugs, and Biopolitics in the pharmacopornographic era, issues of identity can be linked to issues of status. Consider those who have hormone treatments. Those who try to redefine their identities need money to carry out these changes, such as purchasing hormone treatments. It's easy to change your clothes, but issues of identity go beyond just material objects, as our physical bodies become a part of this. Perhaps if we didn't have the invention of binary genders, we wouldn't have segregation now based on just class, still affecting our ability to break out of these binaries. Identity is also formed through the compulsion to repeat. By having these views of gender so ingrained into society, they become set identities. Sarah Lucas's work, Two Fried Eggs and a Kebab, is an example of an artwork that explains this, as she leaves 2 fried eggs and a kebab on a table. This is a reduced representation of a female body, stripped back to her sexual organs, which is a brutal representation of how the female body is perceived. Even when the items are removed, the oil from the food is stained into the wood, suggesting that it's difficult to remove female interpolation altogether.
How do we overcome these segregations in our clothing, and how do we deal with representing our identity when we only have a limited selection to choose from? Model Andrej Pejic is one figure working to free himself from his gender binary, featuring in both male and female runway shows, thereby increasing the variety of clothes he has to form his identity and contesting his interpolation. Like Andrej Pejic, it is important to contest this interpolation, as from these binaries, issues of identity arise. Emily Davidson brought forward issues of representation and the body way back in 1913. She was able to get the unseen seen. Davidson was a suffragette who threw herself under the king's horse as was taking part in Epsom Derby on media. Her extreme contesting was equivalent to the level of interpolation in her time, where women's status was much worse and her position was much more constricted and defined by her society. Is the extreme nature of her actions still necessary to confront issues of female representation today? Although our society is supposedly moving forward with issues of sexism and other social constructs, I think our interpolation is something society finds hard to avoid, as it occurs even within first perspectives of people. We assume gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, behaviours, wealth, all by first appearance and what our world has shaped us to think.
As Judith Butler emphasizes in Gender Troubles, projecting masculinity onto the female body is hard for people to absorb. However, she goes on to emphasize that perhaps gender is not a natural fact, but could indeed be a cultural performance, in which having this distinguishment helps to keep a power construct between men and women. Butler infers political possibilities of redefining identity, so removing simple gender binaries could reduce the issue of power between men and women. Perhaps we ourselves could contest interpolation by simply defying labels and things we view ourselves as. Instead of working to present what we think we are on the inside, we should work to defy what is presented of us on the outside. To not accept gender or to not represent it in the way that it is so commonly represented, to make simple decisions, to not stay on your side of the store, or to not wear a bra, use a different toilet, or check a different box when filling in a questionnaire and they ask you what your gender is. By blurring the lines in our own gender, or by removing the repetition of gendered acts, we can do this. If gender is harder to identify, it is harder to call into existence. So by doing this, we can reduce our own interpolation, even if it is minimal. In contesting interpolation, we can approach issues of identity, freeing ourselves from repetition and assumption to perhaps enter a post-gendered and even equal world.